Hi, I'm Tony Buffin with Human Cloud, and we're coming to you live from SIA's CollaborationX conference here in Dallas, Texas. I'm here with John Nurthen, who's the Executive Director of Global Research for SIA. John, Executive Director of Global Research, that seems huge. What are some of the cool, exciting research topics that you're looking into right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult question. Every year we produce something like 240 different research reports. So
you got to pick one of your 240 babies?
Pick one of those, yeah. We cover everything. If you're a staffing executive, then we've got content that's relevant for you. If you're the CEO, we provide you with advice on future trends. If you're the CIO, we've got lots of information on technology issues, AI, of course, which is the main topic here, but even the basic software that you will use, front office, back office, to run your business. We have legal information. We've got a couple of lawyers on the research team, and we provide quarterly legal updates. We do surveys, so we survey everybody in this ecosystem, just trying to get views as well. So we cover lots of different things. If you're talking about favorite, I mean, I guess the thing I'm most interested in at the moment is that conundrum of whether the contingent workforce is growing, which I think is interesting because you can sense that people think it is growing. It's generally accepted that people are working more on a more contingent basis. But if you look at the data, there's not really that much evidence for it. Part of the problem is that the data is very difficult to gather.
Yeah.
So if you just look at statement of work, that's such a complex space, and it's not very well measured. Even with our assessment, you have to make a number of educated guesses. Temporary agency work, we have a good handle on that number. We look at it here in the US, but we look at it globally as well. But even that, it's not growing. We know it's not grown over the last few years. Penetration rate never gets much above 2%, proportion of temporary agency workers to the total working population. Other categories, independent contractors, it's grown since the pandemic, but everything's grown since the pandemic. Before the pandemic, there's about the same number of independent contractors. Yet there's this perception that people think that everybody's going to be working not on permanent jobs in the future. And there are a number of third-party research firms I'm aware of that claim that 50% of the whole workforce will be temporary by 2030. Well, there's no evidence for it at all. So yeah, I'm finding that interesting.
That is really interesting because I'm one of those people that has been under the perception that independent work has been steadily growing and would, at least within North America, be over 50% by 2 or 3 years. Yeah. And what you're saying is the data is kind of saying it's been stagnant since it's kind of returned to post-pandemic or pre-pandemic levels.
The data's choppy. It's very difficult to assess,
especially
even
globally,
with the
right?
I say it's difficult enough in the US. The national statistics authorities do their best, but their data is quite slow. And as we've seen here in the US, they reassess their data as well. Well, we get that for all the other national statistics authorities as well. So it's very difficult for us to say that the whole contingent workforce has grown from one year to the next because people keep moving the data around. It's not us, it's all the different sources that we have to use. So it would be surprising if it hasn't grown. I mean, the structure of the workforce has changed. We've moved to much more service-based economies, and that's easier to where you'd expect there to be a contingent workforce. So I think it has grown, but I couldn't tell you how much in truth, and I couldn't say for sure that it's grown because there's no evidence for it.
I wonder, are you seeing anything, do you break it down demographically? So by age or gender or
we don't within the report that we do. I mean, it's enough of a challenge just looking at the different contingent categories. But some of the statistics authorities, of course, do break it down, numbers of women and different age groups as well. Where we do see growth actually is in some of the emerging economies, places like India. That's where, and places like Spain and Italy, actually Southern Europe. It was illegal to provide temporary workers in some of those countries. Japan, Germany, you couldn't provide temporary workers until the 1990s. So of course that's grown.
So of course it's going to grow, yeah.
But developed markets like here in the US, the UK, Australia, has the markets grown? I don't know. I should be the best person in the world to answer that question, to be honest, and I can't tell you for sure.
Well, I appreciate that, because even though, like you said, the perception, there's this feeling that talent, labor demands are changing, preferences are changing, and that's driving a different dynamic across the workforce.
Yeah.
It's your role to make sure there's data that reinforces that, and if it's kind of jumbled, that's hard. You can't prove it, but maybe you can feel it.
Yeah. Well, we do our best.
Yeah. One of the things that we've talked about at this conference, of course, has been AI. We opened up with that, and AI has been incorporated in every conversation. I feel like it's my responsibility to bring up AI in every one of these conversations.
Yeah.
So that being the case, one of the things that I think you talked about today is ethics in AI, which admittedly hasn't come up in my conversations yet. We're more focused on adoption and what's it going to enable. But what should organizations be thinking about in terms of ethics? Certainly they're thinking about a lot.
Yeah. Well, I think it's very important. I think it's been a neglected topic. We look at this space, we look at talent acquisition technology, which is thousands of software vendors that service this ecosystem. And you look at those websites, you find any of them that talk about the ethics of AI. I think I found one out of the thousands of vendors. So ethics is one thing, but the other issue is explainability. You need to understand how the algorithm is working. You don't just need to understand it because it's useful to know that. You need to understand it because legislation is changing globally. It's emerging. In Europe, we have the EU AI Act, which started to roll out last year and is going to continue rolling out until 2027. Under that legislation, you have to be able to explain how the AI is working. So if you're the software provider, you have to explain it. If you're the deployer of the software, i.e. the customer, you need to be able to explain it as well. If it goes wrong, the European Union regard recruitment, the use of AI in recruitment as high risk. If it goes wrong, then the fines can be upwards of 30 million euros or 7% of your global GDP. So you need to understand it. The problem is that, and you've got the same problem here in the US, because on a state by state basis, New York State has got quite stringent AI regulation. But other US states have started to develop regulation. Unfortunately, it's a patchwork of regulation here in the US, which doesn't make it easy for vendors to deal with. But there's a black box problem. Sometimes the vendors don't want the consumers to understand how it works because it's their IP. They want to keep it protected. But sometimes, frankly, they don't know how it works at all because the AI is so sophisticated that that they themselves don't know how it works. So there's like a slow car crash happening. And we've seen the largest, most sophisticated software firms make mistakes. Being well publicized mistakes by some very large, sophisticated software firms. They're embarrassing. The software has ended up being racist, sexist, any other sort of failings you can possibly think of. Well, if the most sophisticated software companies make those sorts of mistakes, what chance do we stand within this community of, frankly, quite small software vendors? How well are they going to be able to deal with that? How well are they going to be able to protect their customers? How many of them have actually had third-party algorithm auditing done? I think the whole community needs to wise up and get better. The vendors need to do a better job because we want AI to work. But if people don't trust it, and of course the people that don't trust it tend to be the more disadvantaged minority communities. They're the ones that fear that the AI is going to discriminate in some way. If they don't trust it, well, then we all fail.
Well, you touched on it. I'm interested in, for companies that are developing this, you touched on it with the third-party auditing. What else can organizations do to mitigate that risk or that fear of making a mistake?
Well, they can do a lot. For sure, they should be making sure that their vendors have got best practices. There are AI frameworks, there are ISO standards, there are probably something like 15 international standards. So are the products you're using built on any of those frameworks? So there's a whole class of technology, explainable AI. So if you're building AI today, you can put it on an explainable AI framework. So you can get it built in a way where you can assess it from the beginning. Yeah. The only problem with that, the other challenge that we have is agentic AI. As we know, it's self-learning. We may have known how it operated yesterday.
Sure.
Do we know how it operates today?
Yeah.
Are we going to know how it operates tomorrow? So there is a concept called drift monitoring. So, of course, if you want to be certain that the AI is acting ethically and within the law, you need to make sure the product is being monitored on an ongoing basis. And so there's so many things that can go wrong when we're just waiting for these accidents to happen, sadly.
What are some things you feel like are going right? Let's turn the car around a little bit, because it's a very good point, and it's very hard to manage. And it's when it hits the news, it has a chilling effect on adoption and acceptance for sure.
Yeah.
But there's got to be some things that are going well that stand out as maybe a benchmark or
for sure. I mean, you've just got to look around the floor of this conference. There are many innovative companies using AI in new ways. If you think of our industry sort of 15 years ago, there was already software in place. But today, that software has been improved through AI. And plus, there's whole new categories of technology. So chatbots are an obvious example. And even with chatbots, we've seen just those standard chatbots. And now we've got voice AI as well, which is like another whole evolution. So there's lots of good things for sure. But there's no doubt there's risks as well.
Well, you mentioned just walking around this conference, there really are so many different vendors all applying AI in some way. And it's exciting to see the way that they're innovating, trying to solve their clients' problems.
Yeah.
But also what I think is beautiful about this conference is they're sharing. There's a lot of discussion. There's a lot of best practice sharing. And there's so much to learn from peers that are trying to solve similar problems.
Yeah. I've always found it surprising that the staffing industry is one where people do share, because we know, when they leave this conference, they are vicious competitors. They compete to win business, but they all come together and they're all willing to share best ideas and practices. So, I know the staffing industry well. I don't know whether there are other industries like that, but I've always been impressed that the industry does come together and share these ideas. I mean, everyone's suffering from the same issues, and everybody wants to reassure themselves that the challenges that they have, other people are having the same challenges as well.
Yeah, they're not alone. They're all tackling
alone.
Similar challenges.
Yeah.
When you think, so you talked about when they leave here, they're going to be vicious competitors. When you leave here, what do you get excited about that's coming up next?
Yeah. So for us, as I said, we're producing research very regularly. 240 reports this year. The biggest set of reports that we've got coming up are our global forecasts. So we've recently updated our forecast for the US market, which unfortunately we had to downgrade a little. So we're now saying that the market is declining by about 3%.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, and we obviously have to revise our forecast as the economic prospects change. So we update them every 6 months, and we've got to do the same thing in Europe. But of all the sorts of research that we do, those forecasts are about the most popular. That's what our members rely on. So we put a lot of effort in trying to make sure that we get those forecasts right. And we look at probably 16 different countries globally, which isn't the whole world, but that's about 95% of the global staffing industry. So if you've got a handle on what's happening in those markets, then you probably understand what's happening globally. So I think for those global forecasts, we're probably going to have to rein those back a little bit as well. But there are pockets of growth. If I mentioned the emerging markets before. If you want to grow, then open a staffing business in India, open one in China. Don't open one here because it's not growing at the moment. We think that growth will return. A little bit of growth next year. Yeah, I think a lot of people are concerned about whether or not their structural growth has been impaired in the staffing industry, because there used to be a much closer connection between GDP and staffing growth. And that seems to have loosened for one reason or another. There's a number of reasons for it. You can imagine AI might be one of them. The fact that we had the Great Resignation during the pandemic, the fact that we've got an aging workforce. There's a number of different factors that may impact that. We don't believe that connection has been completely undermined, and we do think the industry will start to grow again. But maybe that slow will be a little bit more steady. We might not see the very strong growth that we've seen in the past. But I say there are parts of the world where you will see that growth, but you need to get on a plane to go and find it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at least that's positive to look forward to 2026, and hopefully we see some of that growth return.
Yeah.
But it's got to be hard to predict because the market is really, it's pretty volatile.
Yeah. Some markets are easier than others. Some markets there's very good data. So we like markets in continental Europe where the regulations actually require the staffing firms to provide the authorities with their revenue. So that's perfect.
Makes it pretty easy.
So I know how much the Belgian market is growing for sure.
All right, that's great. Well, for people that want to see these reports, want to learn more about the 239 other reports, where do they go and where do they go to learn more from you?
Well, just come to our website, staffingindustry.com. We have some complimentary research, so if you don't want to pay us, give us an annual subscription to access our research, then take a look at some of the complimentary stuff. Some of that is valuable and useful, so I recommend that. But take a look at the free stuff and then think about membership.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah,
this has been a great conversation.
Cheers.
And hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.
Yeah, thank you.